Hey Burbank 5th graders. Now we're on the last step of our first project. So up to this point, we've written a word or our name in 1-point perspective. We had a vanishing point, and then we drew orthogonals to that vanishing point. So as your letters approach the vanishing point, they get smaller and smaller until they start disappearing or vanishing as they reach the point. For this last part of the lesson, you're simply going to decorate your word in 1-point perspective using color or patterns. So I'm just going to be decorating it with a different style for each letter just so you can see. Now you can choose any style you want. You can mix them up if you want, or you can do your entire word in one style. So I'm just going to demonstrate each letter in a different style, but you can determine how you want to do it for your own project. So for the letter H, I'm simply going to use different colors to color different parts of my letter H. So, for instance, and you can use anything you want on this, I'm just going to be demonstrating with markers, crayons, and colored pencils. So maybe on the front of my letter H, I just simply color it in one color. When I finish coloring the front, which is also known as the face of your letter, you can choose a different color and color in each side if you want. Now on the letter O, I'll show another technique that you can use to decorate your word. You can also decide to use patterns inside of your word face or the letter face. You can put patterns inside of it. So for instance, maybe I'll put circles inside of it. And then I can kind of mix the style like I did in the first letter and use a different color for the other parts of the letter. For the A, I want to demonstrate a different technique. If you want to challenge yourself a little bit, this vanishing point, as things disappear to the vanishing point, things go away, and that also affects the color. So another technique you can use if you want to challenge yourself for this part of the project is to make the color lighter as the letter approaches the vanishing point. What I mean by that is, so let's start with this part at the top of my letter A right here. If it gets lighter as it approaches the vanishing point, what you can do is you can simply color the whole part lightly first. So I'm just going to color it in very softly with a color pencil, something that you can blend with. So for this part, it might not be a good idea to use a marker because you're not going to be able to blend as well. But let's say I use a color pencil and I draw it lightly. Then as I get down, I'm going to leave some space at the top and I'm going to go over with another layer. As I go down with another layer, it's going to get darker on that part that I go over twice. And then at the very bottom, maybe I'll go over again a third time to make it even darker. So as it approaches the vanishing point, your color will gradually get lighter and lighter because your color is going to get affected. It's going to kind of fade out as it approaches the vanishing point. So that's one way you can do it. So I'm just going to use that technique of just fading my color out to the vanishing point so I can go over it lightly. And the more that you add on top, the darker it will get. So I just skip a part and then I just skip a part again. And it kind of gives a gradual effect of your color just fading away as it goes towards the vanishing point. You'll probably be able to see it a little bit better as I go up the A, maybe this way. But this is the face of your letter, which is usually right up at the same level. So there's not depth in the face of your letter. So it's okay if the front of your letter doesn't have a color fading towards the vanishing point, because really all of the front of your letter should be the same depth, which means it's as close as any other part of the face. So if I do it right here where it's going three-dimensional into the depth part of it, then it can fade. So this part of the A, I'll just leave it the same color. Now, as I move over to N, I just want to demonstrate maybe you don't like using color and you just want to use a pencil to color it in. So there's different techniques, just like a part of the letter A, as the color gets lighter as you get there towards the vanishing point, You can also kind of use the same technique using different hatching techniques. So for the letter N, I'm going to show you different hatching techniques to change the value or the lightness or darkness of a color. So for instance, like I said before, the front of my letter N is the same depth. It's right in front of you at the same space. So I'm just going to give it all just one set of hatch marks across the face of it. Let's say I want to make these parts on the side of my letter darker, or right here where the letter is really going to be dark. You can add more hatches in there. So a series of hatches go in one direction. So all these are going in one direction. But if I cross them, I can make this area look darker by calling them cross hatching, because they're crossing over each other. So I'll do that on the sides of my letter right now. And if I want to make them really dark, I just add more sets of lines inside of it, which it should make sense because you're just adding more of your pencil into these areas. So the more of the pencil graphite you're using, it's going to get darker and darker. So I can just keep on adding more sets of lines. And they're not going to be perfect over there, but you can see every time I add another set, it's going to slowly get darker and darker. So these are called hatching lines. So I can also use hatches up here on the top too. But let's say I don't want to make it as dark. So I won't use as many sets of cross hatching lines on this part. So maybe I'll just do 2 sets on the top. And that's just called hatching. And I just noticed on the front, maybe I'll just do another set of lines on the front.
Just to kind of fill in the space a little bit more.
All right, for the last letter, I'm just going to demonstrate another style that you can use. It's kind of using this first one that I did where I actually started fading color, but maybe I do want to just add some gradual color change in the face of my letter G, where I didn't do it in the letter A. So it's the same technique where you're just doing one layer of a color. So I'll use green this time for this letter. So I'll slowly, just evenly, slowly and evenly color in each side of my letter. And as it gets to the vanishing point, I'm going to skip a little space, go down over the rest of the letter with another layer of my colored pencil. Go down again at the bottom, and it should be darker at the bottom. So it's gradually getting lighter and lighter as you get to the vanishing point. I can use that same technique on the face of this letter. So this is where it's different from the letter A, where in letter A in the front of the face, I just kept it one solid value. On the front of this G, I'm going to kind of fade it. So I am going to start off the same way like the letter A by going lightly and evenly over the entire face of my letter G. Okay, now that I've evenly covered the front of my letter G or the face of my letter G, I can skip down some and start going over a second layer. So maybe I'll start right here. I'll go over from this point on down with a second layer, making it a little bit darker. And I'm going to continue doing this, skipping down after I color it all in, and add another layer and another layer and another layer until I am happy with the way I colored in my different values. Then I can go in here into the different areas, and I can say that the light's really being kept away from underneath my letter G. So maybe I'll make that really dark from the get-go here too also. And same thing right here where things are getting covered up. These sides I can color in very darkly right here. Okay. And this side, maybe it's going towards the vanishing point. I can do the same technique where I did with the top, whereas I make it lighter as it approaches the vanishing point, which means I'm adding extra layers away from the vanishing point. Same thing on the top part right here. Now that I've done all the letters, you can stop right here if you like. If you want to go further, you can decorate all around your name if you want. But I'm just going to stop right here. So you can see there's different techniques that I used on this. Feel free to use your own technique if you want. But these are just 5 suggestions as to how you can complete the rest of your project. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, make sure you meet me on office hour or send me an email or a private message on Google Classroom.